Okay, this is how each data point is constructed in space. So this is supposed to be easy. This is supposed to take out all the stuff you don't need and just give you the things you do need in order to control how export happens. So this is for developers. And if they create a new style, they can put it in here so that they can copy and paste one of these plugin names, and they can make a whole new way that the control point's set up into physical geometry, and then they can name that, and then once they've named it, they can go back into the GUI, and let's say I know that my plugin is called, grab this, yep. So there's a few ways you can call this. I'm gonna put this in export style, and this can be called export plugin.createFBX line graph 2D. That's the name of the file, what you just copied, easy. Or it can be called plugins dot, which is how it's referred to because it's in the plugins folder. Pavlov active. Those bad boys live here. So if you want to control your color, your export or your import, put a new file here, or go look at these files and understand what they do. So I put that in here, and I actually have made it so that it doesn't, it won't add it back right now. So you need to put export plugin, you need to put the whole thing. But what I would like to do is make it so you could also just put that, and then it would do it. And CreateFBX is important because we want other file type exports as well, and it would call it in a totally different way. But then you might have to choose your export file from something like this, another drop-down menu. But yeah, so when you ask for multiple color options and you hit submit, this is not a good way to do this text bar because it's way too short for the text that it holds, but it's basically just putting in the versions of file names, like here it is, plugins, color plugins, singular keys, bar chart. Let's look. Color plugin, singular keys, bar chart. That's what it's going to call. What does it do? So this one is a class, so it's actually interesting because some of these aren't classes, some of them are. This is a class, this export plugin. Some of the import plugins still aren't, but they should be because there's no reason they can't be. For a while I thought maybe I wouldn't be allowed to, but you are. So you may as well just make them classes. And then you can assign variables and it makes it easier to mess with. Now it's kind of a little less modular because it lets you hide how you're storing your object-oriented variables. You don't have to pass everything in. But it's, you know, as long as you have spent enough time with it, you understand what it's doing. It's not ideal, but it is helpful in a lot of ways. So we can talk about that. I'd love to talk about that with more experienced people. Of how you're passing these bad boys in, because then when you're doing your logic in here, it's calling variables that you might not have passed in. That's really important to know. So here's a color one, and they're not great, to be honest, because you have to write a whole new color function for how these things are defined and where you're getting that color from. So now you might need to know other variables, and the variables you might often care about would be in style. And you need to know what's up with style. And you can store, if you need to create a new variable that doesn't exist in order to make a color that doesn't exist and put that in the plugins, do it and put it in style. So style has all these things like how we're controlling text color. This is totally defunct. We no longer control the plotting style here. Let me just go ahead and comment this out. We don't need that anymore. That's the old way. Because every time you want a different style, you'd have to change it there. And it used to be in main. You'd have to go to main and you'd have to change the name of the style. Now we have a drop-down menu. Hooray. Not always better, but as long as the GUI works, it's better. And then also there's a place in main to override because it calls it all into main. Let's look at that. Some of you guys are like, why are you using VS Code and Python idle and Notepad++ all at the same time? You're a crazy man. And the answer is, yes I am. Yes I am. It works for me, you know, whatever. Here we go. So you're creating all of your objects, like style matters. Less and less these days since we've been working on these plugins, and since like OOP has pulled a few things away from it, but it matters. A GUI object, that's where you pull your variables. Those variables get passed to user input object just to say, hey, here's everything the user put in, none of the stuff we need for the GUI, just the stuff we want. And then there's some cleanup from the GUI to the user input. And then some of that gets moved around to, we're almost done here.